The Vietnam War, 1966. The jungle was quiet. Too quiet. A squad of U.S. Marines moved cautiously through dense vegetation near Monkey Mountain in 1966. Then, suddenly, something heavy slammed into the ground beside them. Not a bullet, a rock. Another came crashing through the trees. Then another. Massive stones, some as big as bowling balls, raining down from the dense canopy. The Marines assumed it was an ambush until they saw what was throwing them. Large, ape-like figures moving upright through the trees, covered in dark hair, powerful, fast, and aggressive as hell. Whatever these things were, they were not human. They would soon come to be known as Rock Apes. I'm Uncle Perry. I don't just tell stories, I dig up the fucked up ones most folks are too chicken shit to talk about. And I do it in a cavalier kind of way. When it comes to cryptids, I chase down the truth behind the legends. This time, we're taking a little trip to Vietnam and the Rock Apes. Kinda sounds like a 60s band, right? It's post time, baby. It's time to crack a frosty one. Kick your feet up and let's get it! So stupid, man. Sounds to me like a 60s band. It's post time, baby. It's time to crack a frosty one, kick your feet up, and let's get it! Alright, this is one of the most famous rock ape encounters to come out of the Vietnam War, and honestly, this sounds like something straight out of a Predator movie. The story takes place near the Da Nang area in the thick jungle terrain where visibility sucks and everything feels like it's watching you. According to accounts, a U.S. unit had stopped to rest when suddenly the trees about 15 yards uphill started shaking violently. Now, obviously, in Vietnam, violently shaken jungle usually means one thing: incoming enemy contact. So the soldiers immediately got ready for a firefight. But what stepped out of the brush a little wasn't the Viet Cong. Witnesses described an oblong head pushing through the vegetation, with reddish hair covering most of its head except for the face. The eyes were described as dark and deep set, and the mouth looked unusually large. When the thing finally stepped fully into view, the soldiers got a better look. Around 5 feet tall, muscular build, standing upright on two legs, covered in matted reddish-brown hair. The face, hands, feet, and knees appeared mostly hairless, which gave it an even creepier, almost human look. The men reportedly argued about what the hell they were looking at. It stopped and looked at them, as though scrutinizing each of the soldiers. "What the hell is that?" one of the soldiers recalls muttering. It's an orangutan, isn't it?" asked another. "Well, if it is, he's lost as hell, because there ain't no orangutans in Vietnam." It stood there, apparently observing the soldiers, almost like it was sizing them up. Then it slipped back into the jungle. That should have been the end of it, but nope, hell no. More movement started happening in the trees. Branches snapping, shapes moving. The soldiers began to realize there wasn't just one of these hairy little bastards out there. There were a whole fucking shitload of them. Reports claim the captain initially ordered the men to throw rocks at them to scare the creatures off, instead of opening fire and giving away their position. That brilliant-ass plan backfired immediately when the creatures started throwing rocks right the hell back, and apparently throwing them pretty damn hard and accurately. At that point, the Marines estimated there could have been dozens of these things surrounding them, possibly as many as 50 moving through the jungle in coordinated groups. Things escalated fast. The situation turned into close-range chaos with confusion, cussing, and gunfire echoing through the trees. Some versions of the story say the sounds coming over the radio were described as an all-out battle taking place in the jungle darkness. By morning, investigators found several injured Marines. No casualties, thank God. Only broken branches and large, strange footprints all over the ground, showing that something weird had definitely been moving through the area. Many accounts even claim several dead bodies of the creatures were seen after the fight. The men were ordered out of the area immediately. The brass wanted confirmed body counts, not cryptid sightings. Because of this way of thinking, many Rock Ape sightings were unreported and never investigated. Some cryptozoologists say these creatures behaved like territorial primates, traveling in packs, mostly active at dusk or night, and becoming aggressive when humans wandered into their territory. Whatever happened out there became known as the Battle of Dong Den, and like many Rock Ape stories, the only real evidence comes from the men who were there and whatever the hell was moving through the jungle that night. Before we move on to the other sightings, I want to show you something interesting. This clip was filmed somewhere in Laos. The person filming is in a tree, looking down at a small, hairy creature moving around below. Watch this shit. The creature walks directly toward the tree, but doesn't look up. Could be misidentified wildlife, could be a hoax, or maybe something else entirely. It does line up with some of the descriptions reported by soldiers in Vietnam. Mine's bigger. Jerry was in Vietnam 1967 to 68 near a fire base called the Rock Pile. One night he heard what he believed to be invaders coming through the minefield. A Marine next to him said that they were rock apes, and he then threw a rock in the direction of the intruders, only to have it thrown back. He again threw it back at them, but this time a bigger rock got thrown back. Every time he threw a rock at them, the rock got bigger on the return until it was almost bowling ball size. Quite the little game they had going. Due to darkness, they couldn't tell how many rock apes were there. Suddenly, they heard an explosion when one of the apes stepped on a mine. Jerry said, "Mine was bigger." Creepy Camo. Robert Barrett documented some of his time in Vietnam in a diary that's posted online. Here's what I found about Barrett. Barrett was a member of the 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, 1st Marine Division. He logged in 19 long-range combat patrols and 13 underwater dive searches. He was awarded 5 personal and 6 unit decorations for service, so pretty much a badass. He later went on to graduate from Old Dominion University with honors in 1975. In his diary entry for the week of May 8th through the 14th, 1968, when he was at the observation post at Dong Den, aka Monkey Mountain, this is what it says. At night, we started hearing noises at the edges of the barbed wire. Could be rats. Might be VC. Pancho, a Mexican-American corporal who was with me in the defensive bunker, decided to walk up to the communications bunker at the top of the hill. Well, off he went, and I visually followed him as far as I could see him. Then I was alone on top of a mountain in a foreign land. An eternity seemed to pass before I saw movement on the trail and recognized Pancho coming back. About 100 feet from the bunker, he stopped and bent over slightly, seeming to look at something. All of a sudden, his M16 cracked off a small burst of fire and he ran like hell back to the bunker. Pancho was laughing too hard to talk, so I told the lieutenant that it was me that took the shot because I thought I heard something outside the wire. The lieutenant chewed my ass out, then got off the radio. When Pancho got control of himself, he told me that he was walking back to the bunker when he noticed a bush that wasn't there before. He bent over to see it better, and it snorted at him. Startled, he fired. What he had encountered was the rock ape of Vietnam. I would come to learn that they were nearly everywhere and completely fearless. That is what we had heard near the wire that night. Stare down. There was another reported encounter in 1968. 68? There was another reported encounter in 1960. I did it again. There was another reported encounter in 1968 that took place just a month after Barrett's story. Sergeant Gary Linder from the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne Division gave an account that occurred in June 1968 on a Travel Channel show called In Search of Monsters. Here's what Linder said. Second morning of our patrol, we were set up on a hillside. Behind us was a big patch of brush about 12 feet high. It was right after daylight. 2 of our guys were eating. The other 4 were pulling security. And all of a sudden, we heard this commotion in the brush behind us. We all grabbed our weapons and turned around to face it. Suddenly, the leaves parted, and this creature stepped through the wall of brush. It was approximately 10 to 15 feet away uphill from us. It had its left arm grabbing a hold of the brush he had come through, and he looked down at us, and, we froze. We didn't know what it was. It didn't make a sound. It just stood and cocked its head a couple times as it was looking at us. Never changed the expression on its face at all. Between 5'10" and 6 feet tall, long arms, face and hands had no hair on them. I remember the intelligence in the eyes was incredible. It was so human-like. It was unbelievable. We got to watch it for 7 to 10 seconds before it suddenly just turned around and walked back through the brush and disappeared. And to this day, we have no idea what that was. Bowling for Marines. Bob was with his platoon at nighttime when off in the distance the men saw what appeared to be something like a large medicine ball rolling toward them through a ravine. Eventually it came to a stop at the end of one of their rifles, whose possessor tapped on the object. The ball then unfolded into a small creature that began screaming and waving its arms wildly before it quickly ran off. What the fuck? Bob immediately knew it was a baby rock ape. Then came the boulders rolling down the ravine, some weighing as much as 300 to 400 pounds. They were being thrown by the adults, who then started down the path toward the platoon with malicious intentions. Bob said there was no choice but to shoot at them. They estimated there were 17 of them. I've never seen anything like it. Rock Ape Attacks VC. I would come to learn that rock apes were nearly everywhere. That's what we heard near the wire that night. During a 1969 patrol, American soldiers were surprised by the Viet Cong and were pinned down. The unit pressed themselves hard into the mud to avoid being struck by aggressive fire. At one point, one of the soldiers watched a figure emerge from the undergrowth, which he at first assumed was a tall and very well-built enemy soldier. But its true identity was revealed when it ventured into the flashes of crossfire. It was hit several times in the process, stumbling but never falling as it ran away from the skirmish. The soldier then heard the VC yelling to each other before retreating in panic. It must have scared the shit out of him. As the weary U.S. soldiers approached the now abandoned position, they saw that one of the enemy had dropped his weapon as he fled. As they set up camp, the sound of inhuman howls penetrated the night, accompanied by whining, barking, and growls from somewhere deeper in the jungle. The following morning, as they ventured out to investigate, they found what was left of the body of a Viet Cong soldier who had been torn limb from limb. They hauled ass away from the gruesome scene in terror. One soldier who witnessed the carnage said, "The rest of the time we were in Vietnam, I never heard the sounds or saw anything like that again. The talk of what we had seen spread very quickly, and some of the locals called it a name that I can neither pronounce nor remember. But the translation, if I recall, was stench monkey or foul monkey, something like that. But I can't remember for sure. What I do know is that it bothered me so much that I transferred from there to a job on a helicopter so that I wouldn't have to be in the jungle anymore." The Protector. Mark Felton described a story in 1969 when the patrol from Company D, 1st Battalion, 502nd Regiment was resting and having lunch on a ridge 10 miles south of Hue City. They encountered 8 rock apes on a trail and initially mistook them for North Vietnamese Army. When they realized they weren't the enemy, the soldiers opened fire up in the air to scare them away, which is exactly what happened eventually. At first, they stopped, turned slowly towards them, and stared at them. And if opening fire on rock apes wasn't enough, according to Felton, the alpha male rock ape repeatedly charged at the U.S. soldiers. It was taking shots left and right. They say the male rock ape was giving the rest of the rock ape troop a chance to get away. Basically guerrilla behavior. After the troop escaped, the alpha male limped into the forest and disappeared. Now, skeptics, they think the whole rock ape thing is a big steaming pile of jungle bullshit. One major explanation they have is straight up combat stress hallucinations, PTSD. Picture being a 19-year-old kid in a pitch black jungle where literally everything wants to fucking kill you. Your brain is fried, and not in a good way. Adrenaline is blasting and every snapping twig sounds like an ambush. Under that kind of pressure, the mind can absolutely start seeing shit that ain't really there. Fear makes shadows bigger, sounds louder, and anything unfamiliar suddenly looks like a goddamn monster. Another big argument is misidentified animals. Vietnam and Laos are crawling with primates. Skeptics say soldiers probably saw things like a gibbon, orangutan or macaques, or even a pissed-off Asiatic bear standing upright. Gibbons can move fast as hell through trees, and when they briefly stand upright, their long arms can look creepy and almost human. Add thick jungle, bad lighting, and nerves shot to hell, and suddenly a normal animal looks like some 6-foot murder monkey. Skeptics also say the rock throwing might not have been due to rock apes at all. Loose stones knocked from cliffs or debris falling through trees could easily look like something was chucking boulders at you. Then there's the classic war story effect. One guy says he saw something weird. The next guy adds a few inches of height. Someone else says it had glowing eyes. And before long, you've got a full-blown jungle legend getting passed around campfires. Dense jungle environments also play tricks on your eyes. Moving vines, heavy mist, weird-ass shadows, and low visibility can turn ordinary wildlife into nightmare fuel real quick. Bottom line, skeptics say the rock ape mystery is just fear, confusion, and storytelling getting wildly out of hand. All right, so what do the believers think these hairy jungle assholes are? The most common explanation is simple. Rock apes are an undiscovered species of primates living deep in the dense jungles of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And honestly, that's not as batshit as it sounds. Those countries are packed with thick forests, steep mountains, and places folks barely ever step foot in. Scientists are still discovering new animals there even today. Witness descriptions are surprisingly dead on too. 5 to 6 feet tall, covered in red hair, walking upright, built strong, and acting territorial as hell. Some reports even mention groups working together, which suggests social intelligence similar to chimpanzees. That kind of behavior doesn't exactly scream random jungle myth. Another theory flapping around is that they're related to Gigantopithecus, an extinct giant ape that once lived in Asia hundreds of thousands of years ago. Fossils show Gigantopithecus was 8 to 10 feet tall, over 1,100 pounds. Believers say a smaller variant species adapted and survived extinction. That's natural selection, with a twist of relic lineage. Many soldiers insisted these creatures walked upright for long distances, threw rocks accurately, and moved in coordinated groups. That's not typical animal behavior, unless something really fucked up is going on. Other researchers feel rock apes fall into the same category as Bigfoot or Yeti, a relic population of unknown hominids spreading across remote regions of the world. Some think the Vietnam War itself triggered unusual encounters. Massive bombing campaigns, defoliants, and habitat destruction may have forced rare or reclusive species out into areas where soldiers suddenly, fuck me, dude, really? I always fuck up on the really long sentences right at the very end. Massive campaigns. Massive bombing campaigns, defoliants, and habitat destruction may have forced rare or reclusive species out into areas where soldiers suddenly started running into them. Yep, I can totally see that shit. Local folklore also plays a role. Southeast Asian traditions include stories of wild jungle people like orang, pendek, and batutut. Maybe American troops encountered something locals already knew lived in those forests. Is it remotely possible that there's a large species of primate in the remote Vietnamese jungles that hasn't yet been discovered by science? Well, in 2019, biologists found a population of Vietnamese mouse deer no one had seen for over 30 years, and everyone figured it was extinct. And it wasn't until 2017 that a new species of orangutan was confirmed in the Tapanuli, And it wasn't until 2017 that a new species of orangutan was confirmed in the Tapanuli region in Sumatra, proving that these kinds of critters can absolutely go fucking poof in dense-ass forests. There's a possibility that the rock ape, which looks a hell of a lot like an orangutan, might really be a distant relation to the orangutan, since they did once exist in Vietnam. Some of the behaviors that have been reported for rock apes, like rock throwing, stick waving, and family groups, which are defended by a pissed off alpha male, are typical behavior of grape apes. Grape apes. Some of the behaviors that have been reported for rock apes, like rock throwing, stick waving, and family groups, which are defended by a pissed off alpha male, are typical behavior of great apes, especially African chimpanzees and gorillas. After conditions stabilized somewhat in 1973, the Vietnamese government authorized an expedition led by General Wang Min Bob to capture or kill one of the rock apes. The mission ultimately flopped harder than a Temu tent during hurricane season. Reports from American soldiers during the Vietnam War lend a higher degree of credibility to the encounters, as multiple service members described seeing large, upright, hairy primates behaving aggressively in dense jungle terrain. The sightings didn't end with the war. Fuck no! Throughout the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Vietnamese rangers, scientists, and local outdoorsmen continued reporting small, upright, hairy fucks moving through remote forest regions. Within cryptozoology, the rock apes of Vietnam remain a notable case, blending wartime testimony with mystery. The persistent stories have influenced cultural narratives and ongoing scientific curiosity, suggesting that the world's dense jungles may still contain undiscovered species awaiting verification. Do you like weird-ass monsters? Then tap that like button and subscribe. That way, you won't miss out on more of my fucked-up commentary. And besides, I really do appreciate it. Do you think rock apes are a different species of ape or something else? Let me know down in the comments. And if you're ready to crank that shit all the way up to 11, that join button's got your name on it. For just $2.99, you can have my back in a huge way. Until next time, y'all keep it real, keep it chill, and stay creepy! Catch you on the flip. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You are the real beast.